Stocks our strategists feel are poised to deliver positive returns are featured now in their top stock picks of the week.
We are going to hear about two stocks in the news, albeit for different reasons. As we get some input here from our strategists, Kevin Cook, who joins me here at the desk, and David Boren, first-time appearance on Skype. David, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll get to you in a minute. But Kevin over here has got a company that's really all over the news here lately. And I have to ask you, because of all of the negative news out there on Boeing, which is the stock you're going to talk about, and I'm not trying to be funny, have you taken leave of your senses by recommending this as a pick at this particular time?
From an investment standpoint, no. And in the wake of another tragedy, Ethiopian airliner went down, and over 150 people lost their lives. It's on people's minds.
Right.
Second crash of this particular aircraft, the 737 MAX, and so I wanted to talk about it from the standpoint of if you're a passenger and you're flying this month, and
right. You've got concerns.
Yeah, but also from the investment standpoint. So
and also concerns.
Exactly, because, and especially when people make the connection, second crash of this new airplane in less than 6 months, obviously they're not, well, in people's minds, obviously there's a connection, right?
Yeah.
But it's a mystery still. So there's a lot we don't know. Boeing issued a new press release this morning addressing the problem and their fix. They talked about the Indonesian crash in October. They just briefly mentioned the Ethiopian crash because that investigation still has to happen. We don't know for sure. And in worst case scenario, you could say that if the accidents are completely unrelated, then does this plane have two problems? So, what I want to do is just take away the mystery, if I can, in a few minutes, like what exactly is going on here. So there is a new system on this plane that helps pilots fly. It's an automated system. And they had to create it because the 737's been around forever. There's thousands of them flying, right? But this new type, the MAX, they changed the engine configuration, which changed the aerodynamics of the plane. So, typically in a plane, when the pilot, pulls back on the yoke and wants to, pitch up and go higher, it's because the tail, the horizontal stabilizer, the elevator, tips like this, and that air pressure pushes the tail down. So,
I see.
Or in this case, pushes the tail down so the nose goes up, pushes the yoke forward, the elevator goes like this. Well, to make flying easier for pilots, there's these tabs on there called trim tabs. So you're going to be hearing about this in the news. And these trim tabs can be adjusted automatically also. So Boeing creates this new airplane. They realized with the added power that the 737 MAX was going to have, the nose would tend to pitch up in a lot of situations. So it had this, with more power, it had this tendency to get up and go, right? So they created an automatic system. It's called MCAS, M-C-A-S, and we'll look at what that spells out in a minute. But this maneuvering system may have gotten in trouble in the Indonesia crash because if a plane pitches up too much, a stall warning goes on, right? Because if your nose goes too high, all of a sudden you lose lift. The wings are not, keeping you aloft anymore. So there's a stall warning. Well, what the MCAS system is designed to do is to push the nose back down. So what is believed to have happened in the Indonesia crash is there was a stall warning that failed. It was reading incorrectly between the pilot and the co-pilot, and all of a sudden the MCAS system takes over and starts pointing the nose down.
I see.
And the pilots could not recover it. So what we know from the Indonesia crash is that from the recorders, black boxes, is that the pilots were exerting over 100 pounds of pressure to try and pull the yoke up to keep the plane from plunging.
I see.
And unfortunately, they couldn't. We don't know if that's what happened with the Ethiopia crash. It could take weeks, months to find out. Let's go to the Boeing press release, and I just want to highlight what they talked about this morning. So this is from March 11th, Boeing statement on 737 MAX software enhancement. I just want to read this paragraph right here. For the past several months, and in the aftermath of Lion Air Flight 610, that's the Indonesia flight, Boeing has been developing a flight control software enhancement for the 737 MAX, designed to make an already safe aircraft even safer. This includes updates to the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System. That's the MCAS that I was telling you about, which was invented for this airplane to control pitch in certain situations automatically. So they call it a flight control law. And the software will upgrade pilot displays, operation manuals, and crew training. And this is critical here too, because we may find out in one or both of these crashes that it was a training issue, that pilots may not have been properly trained on, if there was one problem, do we need to disable the MCAS so that we have control of the airplane? That may be proven in either case. The enhanced flight control law incorporates angle of attack inputs. Angle of attack is just letting you know, what's the airplane's relationship to the airflow, and if all of a sudden an airplane pitches too high, doesn't have proper airflow, it can go into stall. Stabilizer commands, we talked about the elevator trim commands, and so this is key here. So they mention in response to an erroneous angle of attack reading. In other words, erroneous stall warning, which they believe happened in the Indonesia crash. And I recommend everybody read this, very short press release from Boeing, just so they understand what's going on.
So back to the investment side of the story, though, the share price had increased in the past 12 months. From what I understand.
Boeing's been on a tear. That's why the Dow is so strong. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, 440 or.
So it's got some ground to run here to try to recover from this fall.
Yeah, I mean, it's been down, over 10% at one point, probably yesterday, bounced back, maybe closed down 5%, but it's given more back today. I mean, here's the thing. Boeing has. This is one of their most successful new airplanes. And they've got 4,600 on backlog. I mean, they've got like a 10-year backlog for this aircraft.
Right.
At $120 million a piece, that's like $550 billion in backlog. So they definitely have an engineering and a PR challenge here, right?
Yes.
Because everybody's grounding it. You and I were talking this morning. Right away it was China grounded them. Then this morning it's Australia and Singapore, and then you told me the UK.
UK, yeah.
We don't even want them in our airspace.
Right.
So Boeing has a PR issue here. If they can get ahead of it and explain what the mechanical issue is, what the software patch is going to be, and it's not really a software patch. It's probably it's really a software enhancement. There's no bug. It's just letting pilots know this is what's going on, and in some cases maybe telling them turn off the MCAS, and so that's an important thing for them to get. If they can get out ahead of this, then they're fine. I just want to show you one more thing. There's a website called Flight Radar 24, where you can see how many of any given plane are flying over any part of the world you want. So let's see if I can find I had the U.S. here. Oh, there's Greenland. Okay, let's get. I zoomed in here a little bit too much. Let me zoom back out. Okay, here we go. So over the U.S. right now, you can see on this website, flightradar24.com, that there's 40 Boeing 737 MAXs in the air right now. The FAA and U.S. carriers are not grounding it because they believe it's a safe airplane, and also the U.S. pilots are well trained. So, that's the difference right now. And it's perfectly fine for China, Australia, and the UK to be skeptical until more answers are given. And maybe that will happen quickly. Maybe that'll happen slowly. In the meantime, yeah, Boeing stock could go down to 300. For long-term investors, I say hold, but there could be a great trading opportunity here. And the reason it's a Zacks #1 is because of this backlog of orders.
Right.
And the stock, over a year ago, we were talking about the stock trading at 30 times. Now it's trading at 20 times forward EPS because of their sales success with these aircraft.
Well, what's also very interesting here is that the company's 20-year market outlook forecasts commercial jetliner demand to increase by 4.1%, with single-aisle jets being the major driver behind the demand and growth.
There you go, 737.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why they've got this backlog. So, does this crisis put a dent in that backlog? It could. And Boeing obviously has to provide a lot of answers. We need to hear from both the carriers and the pilots, who also and the FAA, obviously. Everybody besides Boeing, who's a stakeholder here, needs to give the thumbs up. Yes, we know what the situation is, and it's about training, and the software enhancement is welcome.
So even from the investment side, it's too early to tell. It's a developing story.
Exactly. Yeah, we could still be talking about this 6 months from now.
Yeah, well, and we're going to count on you to keep an eye on it, which I'm sure you have more than a casual interest in.
Yes.
Since you've recommended the stock here. Dave, I promised we'd eventually get to you, but we're out of time. No, I'm sorry. I'm just joking. Dave, you're talking about Abercrombie and Fitch.
I am. Well, so that's Kevin's act there is a little bit hard to follow. He's got a plane crash, and all I have is a retailer. But it's a fairly exciting retailer, and I think has a broader level of interest for investors because it kind of shows where the future is going to be for retailers who successfully combine online advertising and still have a physical presence in malls. So we've heard a lot about the mall being dead. Amazon is going to wreck regular retail sales, and that's definitely not true. Now, for those who aren't familiar with Abercrombie, they became famous in the 90s with a pretty innovative in-store style that involved a sort of nightclub atmosphere. There was a lot of fragrance sprayed around. They had models in front of the stores. In most cases, the male models didn't have shirts on. It was a sexy atmosphere, and people kind of ate it up for a while. And then it got real stale. And Abercrombie suffered for a while. In 2014, they basically completely revamped their approach to media and marketing to a much more tech-savvy approach that appeals to the younger customers that they're looking for. So the Abercrombie customer is generally in their early 20s, and then their younger brand, Hollister, appeals to teens and college students. And basically, retail stores are expensive, especially compared to the cost of running an online business. So Abercrombie is pretty aggressively reducing the number of retail stores that they have. They closed 29 last year. They're going to close 40 this year and remodel 45 more. And they do these closures as the leases expire. So it's a sort of natural process. Lease comes up, they decide, is this store a performer? And if not, they're willing to just let it go. And the new stores have a much...
They're in the news. That's to your point here. They are in the news because of those store closures. But you obviously, from what I'm hearing, don't view that as a negative on this stock.
Not at all. It's very much the opposite. It's a positive. So they've gone from having a larger number of stores to a smaller number of stores that actually also have a smaller physical footprint, which makes them less expensive for the lease, less expensive in terms of employment cost, but are more effective in terms of showcasing their brands. And they augment that with a very effective social media campaign that includes, and I'm going to date myself here a little bit. When I was in high school, I watched YouTube. When I was in high school, I watched MTV. My daughter watches YouTube. That's her MTV. And so they have their own channel. It's called Awesomeness TV. And they have social media influencers, famous people that you and I have probably never heard of, but the kids definitely have. And it's fairly effective brand advertising. So I'm going to go back to my daughter here. She's my favorite focus group with a sample size of 1. She happened to have the day off from school yesterday, and she went, of course, to the mall. And I asked her, because I knew that I was going to be talking about Abercrombie, what do you think about Abercrombie and Hollister? She said, they're great. I said, did you go to the store yesterday? She said, no, the Abercrombie store was closed. So it's one of the ones that's being remodeled right now at the mall near our house. Now, what does that mean in terms of the investment thesis, the Abercrombie's business? Well, they call their online sales their largest store. And right now they're doing about 35% of their sales through the online store. And that's pretty solid for them because that's a lot less expensive than running physical stores. They hire a lot less people. It's a lot less expensive real estate. They don't have to get expensive mall leases. That's mostly done out of warehouse space, industrial park kind of space. Their earnings, they just had a blowout quarter, about 20% higher than the estimates, and we've seen the Zacks consensus estimate for the current year up about 40% in the past 30 days, and for next year up almost 100% in the last 30 days. So that adds up to a Zacks #1 rank. Importantly, they've obviously got momentum and growth. They also have value. So Abercrombie trades right now at a forward PE of 19. It's a little higher than the S&P, which is close to 17, but well short of the retail average, which is a whopping 27. So this is a value stock as well. It gets a VGM score at Zacks of A, combining growth, value, and momentum.
All right. Well, when Kevin and I were in high school, we were watching televisions that you had to get up and turn the channel manually for. So talk about dating yourself. But well, it's a different story. Dave, do you own either of these two companies?
Boeing or Abercrombie? No, I don't own either.
All right. How about you, Mr. Cook?
Not at this time.
All right. And thank you for bearing with us here, even though we probably took a lot more time than you probably anticipated, but we felt that all of the information given was really important for you to hear. And there's a lot more stock information on our website, Zacks.com. Don't forget to go there to see the developing stories on both of these companies and others. With Kevin and David, I'm Terry Ruffalo.